Okay, I went ahead and started recording, so I'm going to go ahead and get started now. Welcome, everybody, to How to Tuesday Fall Back into Budgeting. Thank you all for joining us. How to Tuesday is our weekly webinar series where we give you 30-minute bites of information from all over campus and beyond to teach you how to succeed in college. My name is Claire Reinert. I'm your teaching and learning librarian. We are joined today by Tracy Range and our partners over at Central Bank. Tracy, we are so happy to have you with us today, and I'm excited to learn more about budgeting. We'll have a chance for questions at the end, so you can type them in the chat at any time and we'll make sure that they get asked at the end. We'll also be putting a recording of this webinar, the lecture component on our website so that you can watch it later. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the warm introduction. I am Tracy Range. I am the Director of Prosper U with Central Bank, and I am also a certified financial and credit counselor. I've also worked in the financial services industry for about 20 plus years. And also on the call is our program coordinator, Kaijetta Wormsley, who recently joined us from Chase Bank with a little over 6 years of financial services industry experience. And as you can see from her profile, she holds several FIMRA certifications, which ultimately validate her competencies and knowledge specific to securities, investments, and certain types of insurances. And so once again, we just want to thank you all for having us. And just a quick overview and summary about Prosper U. Prosper U is our free financial education program that allows us to contribute to the development of our communities by improving financial literacy, within our communities. Our goal is to engage, empower, equip, and guide people towards financial success that leads to financial wellness. And achieving financial wellness requires a holistic approach that encompasses the various facets of money management, which includes your budgeting, your savings, your credit, your career, your asset building, and even your retirement planning. And because those components tend to interlock and interchange, we prefer to take a catered approach to our content. In the types of classes that we offer so that we are truly resonating with your needs. Okay. All right, so here is what we are going to be covering in our very short session today. I plan to share a few tips to help you with budgeting, implementation, and setting some goals. Then we will move into budget and planning for the holidays. And I will also share a few spending hacks. And then lastly, I will close with just a little insight and a few tips on spending motivators and personalities to help you navigate the urge to overspend. And as mentioned earlier, because this is a very short session, and there's a lot of content that I do want to cover. I'm going to go ahead and get through all of the content. And at the end, we'll take any questions. Kaijetta is going to actually monitor any questions. If you want to go ahead and type them in the chat, you can feel free to do so. Or again, you can save them until the end. Uh-oh. Hello? Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Can hear you.
Okay, so my screen went away. Can you all still see my
We
screen?
can still see it.
Yeah.
I can't see it.
If you want to hit like next slide, I can tell you if it's working.
Oh, it came back. Okay. I
Okay.
don't know what happened to it, but you
That's
can
okay.
still
We'll
see
keep our fingers crossed.
it. Okay. All right. So let me see if it comes. Okay. And here it is. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so kicking off with implementing a budget, let me first say that I believe that the term budgeting is often connotated as something that is difficult or something that's time consuming. And I have to say that I really disagree because I believe that budgeting is 80% behavioral and 20% know-how. We just have to keep in mind that there is no cookie cutter solution because everyone's financial situation just maybe it is a little bit different. And so the good thing is there are many budgeting plans and resources that you can choose from. And so here are six pillars that I believe are essential to budgeting. And with that being said, these are the pillars we will need to focus on for today's session, just to get you back into budgeting. Okay, and so number one is going to be your income. You will want to implement your budget using your total net income for this particular budget plan. This simply requires totaling all of your sources of consistent monthly income that you receive after taxes, and this is going to guide your budget. Number two is going to be your expenses. You will need to create an expense list that includes the amounts that you're spending for your monthly expenses. And if you have periodic expenses that aren't paid monthly, like some car insurances or maintenances, you simply add the average of that expense amount to your monthly expenses. And then there's your debt list. You'd want to create a list that includes your monthly payments for unsecured debt like credit cards, personal loans, student loans, and etc. The total of those monthly payments will be what you're going to include in this budget plan. And then once you've completed the first three pillars, then you can move on to making adjustments and setting some goals. Okay, so here is my recommended simple budget allocation plan. There are lots of plans out there like the 50-30-20, which I use and I love. However, I do believe that plan may be a little bit too aggressive to start with, just only because you're working with three budget categories. That said, this is a 5 category budget allocation plan to consider. And it's simply a form of what we call total sum budgeting. And what that means is that's 100% of your monthly net income. It's going to be allocated and planned out. And so the breakdown is pretty simple. 35% of your net income is going to go for your household expenses. That includes mortgage, rent, utilities, insurance, taxes, and maintenances. And then 15% will go for transportation. So spend no more than 15% of your net income on transportation. That includes your car payment, your insurance, your tax, licensing, maintenance, gasoline, even parking. And then 15% would be allocated towards unsecured debt. And the way I teach credit is that credit is a tool and a resource which should be used to your advantage to empower your financial success. So, for example, your student loans are a means to empower your financial success. So, building this percentage into your budget keeps your debt amounts at a manageable level, and it helps you avoid what we call insolvencies. Okay, and then savings, at least 10%. This is going to be throughout your working life. Get into this habit. Save at minimum 10% of your net income for emergencies and to have that 6 to 9 months of income should something happen. And then the last 25% of your income is going to go for all of your other expenses. So that would include your food, your clothing, your entertainment, your medical, any additional savings, like if you're saving for vacation. All of that we're going to want to fit into that 25% category. Okay, now that you've implemented your budget, you can now determine what adjustments are needed. Do I have enough money to make it based off this budget? Do I need additional income? And if that's not feasible because you're in school or, you have families, to pick up a second job, then, where can you make some adjustments and make some cuts in your current spending? I know I shared and looking at my statement one month, I went to scooters 13 times. And, when you think about that, that's $7 to $10 each time. I could certainly use that money back in my budget, especially going into the holidays. And then also economizing. This is just simply finding ways that's going to save you money, like rideshare or That's going to save you on gas, maybe meal prep. That's going to save you on the high cost of eating out or buying off brand versus name brand. And so looking at ways that you can make those adjustments. And then there's your general spending guide percentage that breaks down your expenses into smaller categories. And, this is if you want to further assess and adjust. And I can send these slides out, but this is just your general percentage guide, and it's going to be available if you Google it. Okay, and then the last slide on budgeting. There are many ways to track your budget, including various apps. Most banks provide free budget tracking directly from your bank account. I know Central Bank does, and I love it. You can also create your own if you choose to, like your own spreadsheet, or you can even purchase a budget planner. I like Amazon. They have them for as low as $10 to $15 if you really want to get a good one. And a good thing is you can read the reviews on it. But whatever you decide, your finalized monthly budget plan tracker should serve, as your guide and as your dashboard. I prefer a one pager if you're tracking manually, in which case your dashboard is going to include the 5 budget allocation categories that we discussed. Okay, and so lastly, before we move on to budgeting for the holidays, I recommend using SMART goals, using a SMART acronym to set your goals. So I love this acronym because it keeps you realistic. As we want goals that are specific, that we can measure, that are attainable, that are also relevant, and then lastly, timely, because we want to ensure that we reach both our short and long-term goals. Okay, so now that we have fallen back into budgeting, it's time to budget and plan for the holidays. The holidays are full of sales, they're full of social events and pressure to spend. And without a plan, your bank account could take a serious hit between the Black Friday ads and last minute gifts. It's easy to blow your budget and start your new year in the red, but we want to help you not do that. And so the first step in budgeting for the holidays is really to determine what types of spending is taking place, within your budget during the holidays. And so, that's going to ensure that you're going to be well prepared. Okay, and so these are the top spending categories during the holidays. Just like we discussed earlier with our budget categories, there are also recommended budget categories that we have to consider, when implementing, our budget for the holidays. So number one, gifts are given. But the other categories can blow your budget, really if you're not cognizant. Decor, this is my favorite season, and I will say I was blown away at how much I'd been spending, in this category during the holidays. In addition, you have the final three, so giving, parties, and food. And one thing I'll say that this is the warm and fuzzy season. I attend a lot of fundraising galas, parties, and family gatherings. And so when you think about that, it can really blow your budget because in the past, I've, not accounted for things like the attire as some of the parties have themes, whether formal or informal. I personally was spending a ton of money on dresses and attire. And then once you're at, the event or party, there's a cash bar, whether you drink or you drink mocktails, there's still costs associated with that. And so, and then think about the theme parties. We're apparently very popular. There's Friendsgiving, and then there's Friendsmas, and then there's team parties at work, and etc. And then lastly, the potlucks, with the food. And with food inflation, these are things that we definitely want to consider and include in our budget. So here is my suggestion for planning and implementing a budget for the holidays. Okay, so you're going to create a holiday budget tracker and you're going to follow these steps. You're going to start early. Lots of people start at the planning and saving at the beginning of the year, but it's never too late to start. You can start today. you're going to determine your spending categories and allocate amounts for each category based on your regular budget. And once you have set those amounts, don't deviate. A quick tip with regards to gifts, if you're, working with a tight budget and you have a large family, discuss gift exchange. That's within your budget. And once again, once you set that amount in that category, don't deviate. Okay. And so moving on to a few hacks. You know, I do really dive into this in some of my longer workshops, but Pinterest has saved my life. And so I definitely recommend if you don't have a Pinterest account, it's one of the safest forms of social media, in my opinion. But I use it for meal planning on a budget, my DIY holiday decor. You can see from the second photo on the slide, there are some really cheap solutions that you can come up with, and they still look very elegant. And there's even ways to recycle outfits. And even though I think I'm pretty savvy with fashion, I can recycle outfits, and I've gotten some really good ideas by just changing the accessories. And so keep that in mind as, one of your hacks. And then the second hack that I'm going to share is, I don't want you to sleep on the Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals, especially if you're shopping for electronics. I typically buy all of my tech items during this time, and those deals and those savings are really unmatched for the remainder of the year. And so I've seen savings that take place during those dates that do not take place for the remainder of the year. And so I want you to be cognizant of that. Okay, and then as we move into our final slides, and we have 4 minutes left, there are many factors that I just want to say that contribute to overspending during the holidays, like marketing ads, compelling offers. We talked about the warm and fuzzies. All of that will motivate spending. And so really to invoke change, we must sometimes, do a reality check, I should say, on our own habits and behaviors. And this is going to help guard those vulnerabilities. And, that can start with, understanding your own personality, especially for the two that I'm about to share. Okay. And so, number one, our impulsive buyers should really be careful during these times. Some of the characteristics may be that you make unplanned impulsive purchases, or you have little willpower, or you buy items you don't need because they're on sale. That's me. And so, you are the most common type of spender. Retailers love you because you lack control. So, tips to consider are on this page. You want to make a list, you want to use cash or take enough money to buy items you intend to purchase, or you can use a reloadable Visa or MasterCard to ensure you stay on track. And so the final slide is our passive buyer. So salespeople easily persuade you into making purchases because, you were easily persuaded. You got to think about it. You didn't do your research. And you may realize later that it wasn't a good long-term purchase. And so what you're going to want to do is slow that process down. Ask questions when talking to salespeople. Challenge yourself to compare prices and other details. And then try making a checklist so that you're comparing details to ensure that you're getting the product that you need. And so I will yield to questions, or we have 2 minutes left.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording now.